the majority of the time when stories are told out here, you usually hear a lot of stories about the large armies and the tactics that they used going out here to these battlefields. Well, today we're going to talk about a couple of soldiers, and these soldiers fought here at Little Round Top. They were brothers. One was in one location, and one was actually here at Little Round Top. They called the Jones brothers. There's a real interesting picture that I've seen of a couple of brothers with the last name Jones. One's name is Adelbert, and the other one is Orlo. Now Orlo, in that picture, is wearing a Zouaves uniform, and he's with the 146th when he fights up here at Little Round Top. Adelbert, his brother, is with the 97th New York, and he ends up fighting on the other side of the battlefield, away from where his brother is. But nonetheless, they both catch hell on the days that they fight out here. Adelbert is a sergeant when he first comes into the military, and in 1861, that's when he would start his career in the United States Army. That didn't last very long. The 146 come out in position here at Little Round Top, and rabbits jumping across my path. The 146 come out and get into position here just as the Confederates are starting to come up the slopes, and these Confederates are pushing the Union back on their heels as they're coming up, and it's a hard-fought battle for those Confederate soldiers trying to come up through here. 146 is up for the task. They've got their men in position, and their men are fighting from rock to boulder to line after line. And they're doing everything they can to stop that wave that's coming up, but it's like a seesaw action. The Confederates will push up, the Union soldiers will fall back to the safety of the rocks and take a position and try not to completely cede the ground here at Little Round Top. Then the Union soldiers will push back down, and the Confederates will slide back down. Well, back behind me here, 146 is up in this direction here, and there's a monument up there to the 146th. And really, at the crest of this hill, I'll put a map up so you can see what I'm talking about right now. The units that are up here, when they're positioned at Little Round Top, are kind of in almost a U shape in this position. You have the 20th Maine anchoring the left flank. You have the 83rd Pennsylvania beside them, the 44th New York, followed by the 16th Michigan. And then for Weed, you have 140th New York, 91st Pennsylvania, 146th New York, anchored by the 155th Pennsylvania. And Hazlitt's battery is directly behind them. So this is what Orlo is looking at when he's out here. And he's fighting these rocky outcroppings here directly behind me. He's fighting from rock to rock, off in that direction there. It's one hell of a fight up here. H Jones is a simple farm laborer when he decides to join up in 1862. His brother Adelbert has already been in the army since 1861, which I guess would show the reason why there's such a gap there in time and rank between the two. Orlo H Jones ends up in the 146th Pennsylvania when he comes in to the army. He's a 23-year-old man, and the picture that we put up on the screen there shows him wearing that Zouave uniform that's well known, with the light blue pants, the yellow streamers running down the sides, and the red sash that everybody recognizes that uniform for. But also, they recognize that turban that's on top of his head. So when he's out here battling in Gettysburg, there's an entire grouping of them over here, just to my right. You can imagine with those glinty, shiny guns and bayonets in the breeze out here, in the sunlight, and those bright blue uniforms and red sashes. They probably make a pretty easy target. Now the fighting out here is so desperate that leader after leader starts falling victim to the bullet. The leader of the brigade out here ends up mortally wounded and dying. Orlo's own commander of the 146th is senior in rank and has to take over for him. Gerard is his last name. One person after another up here is getting shot down. For Orlo's company and unit, we're looking at a total of 28 people. 4 people killed and 24 people wounded severely out here in these fields as far as casualty count is concerned. That's it's a pretty decent rate, but they came out lucky compared to some of the other units that are out here on this field. Orlo walks away from Gettysburg unscathed, no problem. His brother, on the other hand, is not so lucky. Adelbert's fighting down at Ziegler's Grove on July 3rd. And the fighting becomes extremely intense out there. And Adelbert and Ziegler's Grove, you can't see it from here because I'm over at Little Round Top. But if you want to draw an imaginary line, it's out in that direction over there. Adelbert is thought to be dead. He's shot in the face. And he's laying out there in Ziegler's Grove. And his brother thinks that he thinks Adelbert's dead. But come to find out later on, he's just wounded in the face and ends up making it out of here alive at Gettysburg. And both brothers walk away from here in relatively good health and good shape. I'm going to take you out on the ridge here, just below the top of Little Round Top, and hopefully we can get a good enough view to where I can give you a good overview or orientation from this location of what the battle looks like out here as far as the positioning of the troops is concerned. Now, you can't make it out too much. This valley down here runs out towards Devil's Den, which is over there. And then the slaughter pen is on the other side of that hill. Now, up top here, this is Little Round Top's, one of the highest locations on Little Round Top. And the 146th monument is just up over that hill there. And then beyond that is where Governor K. Warren is standing on top of a rock, looking down towards the Valley of Death, the slaughter pen. This is the territory that's the hardest fought over here near Little Round Top. It's not necessarily the rocks and boulders up here as much as it is the open ground in between here, because Georgia and Texas and Alabama come flooding in through this position, and they pretty much have their way over there at Devil's Den. Now, out in that direction, you have the 44th, 48th Alabama, the 4th Texas, the 5th Texas, and the 4th Alabama. And then the 47th and 15th Alabama are actually coming from this direction on the other side of the hill through the tree lines up towards Little Round Top. And that's the two units that are facing the 20th Maine during that famous bayonet charge down the hill, that wheel that stops them in their tracks on the last assault coming up Little Round Top. But that story has been told a million times over, and people play it out in their head all the time as this thing that saves Little Round Top. It did help. But what happened out here in the facing areas, this backside here, more likely saved this position than anything else. And it's not talked about very much. And 146th that we're talking about with Orlo, he's out here in this position. His unit starts down there, and they end up back up top the hill here in that U shape that we're talking about, with the 150 or with the 146th and the 55th being anchored over here. And there's really no better place to tell the story with the battle orientation than right here on top of this monument. Now, for orientation, off down in this direction over here is where the 20th Maine is. The 20th Maine kind of angles down this way and then back like this. Then coming back up in this position over here is the 83rd Pennsylvania. Swinging back in this direction where I'm at right now is the 44th New York. Then the 16th Michigan is off in this direction over here, followed by the 140th New York, the 91st Pennsylvania, the 146th New York, who we talked about in an earlier video, 155th Pennsylvania. And they're all looping back around this direction over here on the top of Little Round Top. And from up here, you can clearly see that outcropping of rocks. That's Devil's Den for reference. The slaughter pen runs down through here. And then the fields that the Confederates are traversing are from across there. You see that tree line off in the distance. They're coming out of that tree line and they're making their way over here. And off in this wooded lot is where 47th Alabama and the 15th Alabama under law are actually coming up this direction. And then you have the 4th Alabama rolling up through here. The 5th Texas, 4th Texas, 48th Alabama, and 44th are off in this direction and then kind of swinging this way as they're coming up towards Hawks Ridge and Devil's Den. The following year would be a bad year for both brothers. 1864, May 8th, Adelbert's wounded for a third time, and he ends up being discharged from the military as a result. But he goes on to live to be 82 years old. He dies in 1920. His brother, Orlo, on the other hand, is wounded severely on June 2nd, and he ends up being taken captive after he loses his leg due to amputation. And he ends up dying in captivity, likely in a prisoner of war camp. And that spells the end of the Civil War for both brothers in 1864. Well, I hope you enjoyed the story out here of the Jones brothers in 146 New York in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It's stories like these that mean the absolute most. And it's the reason why people come out here. They come out here to see where unimaginable things happened, where great things happened, where the unthinkable happened. But they also come out here to connect with the individual stories, the soldiers and the civilians that fought, lived, and died in and around Gettysburg. That's that story today. Adelbert and Orlo Jones. They were both brothers, they were men, they were soldiers, and their stories told here at Gettysburg. Until next time, this is History with Waffles.